What's up, everybody? This is A&J, and welcome back to the network. And in this video, we're going to have ourselves some Broncos talk. And this is going to be centered around the quarterback position largely. I will go into other aspects of the Broncos situation, but this is just pertaining to the quarterback situation. And we're just going to go into the elephant in the room, so to speak. I just I gotta say, it's been so wild how over the last X number of weeks, I'm not really sure because I've lost count at this point, but just whether it's been on Facebook, Twitter, or whatever platform it's been, I see a lot of people, especially Broncos fans in particular, and just let's bear in mind the fact that I don't have a problem with the thought process on this. But the thing about it is that everybody, especially when it comes to Bronco fans, seem to want to go the LeVar Ball route and speak into the existence, just the notion of Deshaun Watson as potentially the next Broncos quarterback. Now, I'm certainly going to be here for that. And at first, I was honestly reluctant in terms of what we would have to give up just to get him. But really, if we're being honest, he's the kind of talent to where if there's an opportunity to get him in a Broncos uniform, whatever needs to be done. And it's just as simple as that. You just can't pass up someone of that level. That's foolishness at the very least. It's not to play into the whole Dabo Sweeney um, statement talking about if just going into draft, I believe it was 2015. I'm not 2015, 2016, whichever year that was, but going into that draft, um, he went as far as saying that passing on him is passing on Michael Jordan, which let's just pump the brakes on that, especially knowing how I've been known to feel as far as anything regarding Michael Jordan is concerned. But that's conversation for a whole other time and place. Um, Point being is that he definitely has that sort of, I think the word that I'm looking for is intangible in terms of being Jordan like in that sense. He's a winner in every sense of the word. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. But to go as far as saying you're passing on Michael Jordan, that even for as great as he has been, it still remains to be seen. But Dabo wasn't entirely wrong about that because the results have spoken for themselves. Sure, it's not necessarily Mahomes' results, but you gotta have a whole lot going for you to be able to say the same thing about anyone as you would for a Patrick Mahomes, regardless of how he may have looked in the Super Bowl. Which, you know, I mean, let's not count on that happening again, just to get that out of the way. But that, again, conversation for another time. Which, of course, I did have a video I was going to upload as far as my thoughts on the Super Bowl, which I'll probably be revising that a bit with another video that I'll be doing here. But just keeping on track here, there are at least a couple of issues as far as Deshaun Watson is concerned. Number one, and this is going to be the biggest thing more than anything else, is that the Texans are not willing to trade Watson at this particular point in time. Now, that doesn't mean that that won't change and in any way, shape, form, or fashion, because I feel like if Deshaun is as firm on his position about not wanting to play for the Texans as he has been, then Houston's going to have no choice. They're just simply going to have to part ways from him and take what is going to be a significant haul and just go into rebuild mode. Because after releasing J.J. Watt last week, they're pretty much at that point. I mean, and that's not to say that Watt is necessarily the J.J. Watt that we've seen over the years in his prime, um, which you could argue he's at the end of, but that still remains to be seen. I mean, I'd like to think that regardless of where he goes, again, subject for another time, he's actually gonna come out with a renewed sense of purpose and is gonna be just incredible to watch. But that aside, even on the notion of bringing in someone the likes of a Deshaun Watson, the thing about it is that we're doing so with the premise of Drew Lock simply isn't good enough. And I couldn't be more inclined to disagree with that notion because the talent is there. Sure, it's not anywhere close to being on the level of Deshaun Watson, and really, that's an unfair comparison in and of itself because it's just that it's night and day. I mean, how are you gonna weigh one against the other? You just can't do that. It doesn't work that way. But in all honesty, it's not as if Drew Lock is any kind of bum. And I feel like that's what a lot of people are acting like is going on here. And that just couldn't be further from the case. Now, even though it was a mere sample size, it's not to say that what we saw out of him in those 5 games in 2019 it isn't something that can't be brought back to reality or anything like that. There's definitely a lot of room for that, but it's just that 2020 being what it was. I mean, not even just in terms of the NFL season itself, but 2020, for as much as we were all looking forward to that being over, I mean, that's just it. It was just a year, just one season, and it didn't start off very well. It was pretty shaky when it came to opening night against the Tennessee Titans. I mean, they definitely looked a lot better. The offense just, I don't even know what happened, and there are a lot of things with that I'll save for another video, which will be coming sooner than later. I think I'm gonna go more into detail about the defensive side in the next video that I do for Broncos Talk, but we'll go into that here towards the end. But yeah, just getting back to Locke, it's not like it isn't there for him. I mean, he wound up getting hurt in the second game out in Pittsburgh, which he actually wasn't all that bad, but having gotten his throwing shoulder wrecked the way that he did, I mean, it's just going to be hard to be the same even once he did get back. And to make matters worse, he didn't have Cortland Sutton in the first game, and Sutton in that very same game wound up being out for the duration of the season. So those two things right there are going to be problematic no matter what. Not to mention the things that they've had to shift around with the offensive line, specifically at right tackle. Given that you had a DeMar Dotson that was brought in but wound up being hurt, and that was as a result of Jawan James opting out due to COVID, which I don't blame him, as a lot of other players throughout the league did. And then you also have to account the fact that we lost quite a bit of the defense to injuries and or COVID, namely Von Miller, who to me was the most crucial loss of all. And it showed. It showed on so many levels. And those are things that I feel like a lot of people to some degree have faulted against Drew Lock, and that just isn't the way to go about that. That isn't right at all. And that's just it. I mean, you got all the weapons there, and a lot of them have been in and out of the lineup from not even just the Sutton situation, but from Tim Patrick, who was incredible this year. Um, Jerry Judy, who they brought in as their first round pick, and to me is gonna end up being the best route runner in the league. KJ Hamler, who, in my opinion, could, if he could become half the route runner that Jerry Judy is, look out, because that speed is ridiculous. I mean, I even went as far as referring to him as our version of Tyreek Hill because he has that to him. It's just, can he get all the other tools in place to actually live up to that, regardless of what extent that may be too? And then, of course, there's Noah Fant and Albert O, which I know I still got to work on the pronunciation of that. I mean, you got all these guys coming back. It's just a matter of solving the conundrum that is the running back position. Will we bring back Philip Lindsay? Is Melvin Gordon on his way out? Which, to me, I believe he is, and I think that the Broncos are going to be better off for that because I mean, I like a lot of what we got out of Melvin Gordon a lot of the time, but there were so many other things that I just could not stomach watching him on the field, and it's just really, really difficult to say that it would be worth bringing him back. And all of the off the field issues that came up, it's just going to make it that much easier for the Broncos to get rid of him. Excuse me. But one way or the other, once a lot of those things get figured out, it's just hard for me to believe that we can look back on 2020 as nothing more than a sophomore slump for Drew Lock. But one way or the other, whether we wind up sticking with him or if we find a way to land a Deshaun Watson, which again, hard to say how likely that's going to be right now, not very. And I doubt that we'll do that by the time training camp comes around. But who knows? I mean, I'm not getting my hopes up, simply put, but only time will tell at this point. And for all we know, this may be the fuel for the fire that needs to be lit under Drew Lock to show everybody, hey, it's not all that bad. And I'm not as bad as you want to believe that I am. But again, we'll see. Time will tell. That being said, let me know what you guys think about that. Should we push even harder for Watson, or do we stick with Locke, or do we look at other potential options? I know that they've talked about other guys that could come in for competition, namely guys like Mariota, Trubisky, if the Bears should go after Wentz, which Wentz was another guy that was talked about, and the Broncos didn't wind up getting him, which I feel like was better because Wentz is better off in either Chicago or Indianapolis. I would say Indianapolis more than anything else because of Frank Reich, but again, we'll see how that goes. But there was again Mariota, there was Trubisky. There's even been a mention of Nick Foles. Hell, they've even talked about Dakota Prescott, which I don't know if that's going to be very likely because I can't see a scenario where, with all the other things that we're trying to work out right now, $40 million for Dak Prescott, and I mean, I don't get me wrong, Prescott was incredible up until his injury, but it's said injury that gives me a little bit of cause for pause where that's concerned. I mean, that's not to say that he still won't be great, whether he still stays with Dallas or goes wherever else, which at this point I feel like the latter is the more likely because for Jerry Jones to and that front office to have gone about things the way that they did, I can't see him sticking around there either. But either way, just as I was going to say, let me know what you guys think. Drop it in the comments section down below. If you enjoyed the content, like and share this video. Definitely subscribe if you are new. That said, thanks for being here. Thanks for having me.